Hey everyone, tonight we're heading back to a quiet farm in Missouri in 1848. You're on the porch as the sun sets, the air is cool, and the only sounds are the chirping of crickets and the low murmur of a family finishing their supper. Life is hard, predictable, and rooted in the soil. But a whisper is traveling across the country, a rumor of a discovery in the new, distant territory of California that will soon ignite a fever for gold, adventure, and a chance at a new life. Let's be honest. On the perilous journey to California, you were far more likely to be taken down by a contaminated sip of water than by an outlaw's bullet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. As always, I'd love to see where in the world you're listening from, so please drop your city and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Every great migration begins, not with a movement of feet, but with a shift in the heart. It is a fever, a dream of a better life that becomes strong enough to sever the roots of home. You are about to witness the birth of such a fever, a global obsession sparked by a single glittering discovery, and follow the long, hard road to a place that was both a paradise and a graveyard, California. Your journey does not begin on a dusty trail, but on a quiet, sun-drenched morning in a half-finished lumber mill. The date is the 24th of January 1848. You are in a remote, sparsely populated territory recently acquired by the United States, a place called California. You watch a carpenter named James W. Marshall as he inspects the tail race of a sawmill he is building for his boss, John Sutter. The water is cold and clear. As he looks down, a glint of light from the riverbed catches his eye. You see him wade into the shallow, icy water and pick up a small, heavy yellow flake, no bigger than his fingernail. He turns it over in his palm. It is not a rock. It is soft, and it shines with a dull, buttery luster. He finds another, and then another. A strange, electric feeling of disbelief and excitement passes over him. He takes his discovery back to his boss, John Sutter, and behind locked doors, they perform crude tests, confirming what Marshall already suspected. It is gold. You are a witness to the quiet, secret birth of a world-changing discovery. The two men agree to keep the news quiet, to protect their lands and their businesses from the chaos they know will follow, but a secret of this magnitude cannot be kept. You watch as the whisper begins to spread. A worker at the mill uses a small amount of gold dust to buy a bottle of brandy, and the storekeeper's curiosity is piqued. A child of one of Sutter's employees shows a small nugget to a stranger. The whisper travels from the remote foothills to the sleepy, small port town of San Francisco. At first, it is dismissed as a tall tale, another rumor from the wild interior. Then, you are in the dusty streets of San Francisco in May 1848. The whisper is about to become a roar. You see a merchant and local newspaperman named Sam Brannan striding purposefully through the center of town. He is not a quiet man. He holds a glass bottle filled with glittering gold dust high in the air for all to see. He begins to shout, his voice ringing through the square, "Gold, gold, gold from the American river." The effect is instantaneous and absolute. You witness a town possessed by a sudden collective madness. Men drop their tools, sailors abandon their ships in the harbor, clerks leave their desks. The secret is out, and the fever has taken hold. San Francisco empties almost overnight as its able-bodied men head for the hills, consumed by the singular, powerful dream of finding their fortune. The news travels slowly eastward, carried by ship and by letter. It is no longer a secret, but it is still a distant, almost mythical story. You are now far away, in the green, rolling fields of Missouri. You are with Ethan, a young farmer, as he finishes a long day of hard, honest work. His life is governed by the predictable, reliable rhythms of the seasons. His reality is the solid, dark earth beneath his feet. You are with him at the general store when a letter from a cousin who went west is read aloud. The letter speaks of the discovery of men finding hundreds of dollars worth of gold in a single day. You see the look on the faces of the farmers. It is a look of profound skepticism, the cautious disbelief of men who know that nothing in life comes easy. It sounds like a fantasy, but the whispers continue. A newspaper article appears, then another. Finally, the official confirmation comes from President James K. Polk in Washington. The stories are true. You are with Ethan in his small farmhouse that evening, after the simple supper is done. He sits by the fire, his hands rough and calloused from the plow. He is a man who knows the value of a dollar earned through a summer of sweat. The idea of picking a fortune from a riverbed is an offense to the hard logic of his entire life. But as you watch him, you see the skepticism in his eyes warring with a new, dangerous, and incredibly powerful emotion: hope. What if it is true? What if a man could, in a single year, earn enough to secure his family's future for a lifetime? The unbelievable promise of easy wealth has begun its assault on the hard, predictable reality of his farmer's life. A life is a river that flows in a familiar channel carved by habit and duty. But a powerful new idea, a dream of gold, is like a tectonic shift. It can divert the river, sending it spilling over its banks and into a new, unknown, and dangerous landscape. You are about to witness the moment a man decides to leave his river and chase a distant, glittering ocean. The winter of 1848 settles over the Missouri farmland, a season of cold quiet and contemplation. But inside Ethan's small farmhouse, the air is not still. It is charged with the restless, feverish energy of the news from California. The initial skepticism you witnessed has been eroded by a constant stream of letters and newspaper articles, each more fantastic than the last. The whisper has become a siren song, and you can feel it pulling at the very foundations of Ethan's quiet, predictable life. You are a silent witness to the great internal war being waged within him. In the evenings, you watch him by the firelight, reading from a newspaper, his voice filled with a breathless wonder. He speaks of men without any mining experience finding thousands of dollars in gold in a single week. He talks of a land where a man's fortune is determined not by the sweat of his brow over a lifetime of farming, but by a single, lucky strike of a pickaxe. This is the voice of his ambition. You can see the dream taking shape in his eyes. A bigger farm, no debts, a secure and prosperous future for his children. It is a powerful and seductive vision. Then, you see him look at his wife, Sarah, who sits across from him, her hands busy mending a small shirt. Her face is a landscape of quiet, pragmatic fear. You hear her voice, steady and full of love, as she speaks of the realities he is ignoring. The 2,000-mile journey, the impassable mountains and the waterless deserts, the stories of cholera sweeping through wagon trains, the farm that cannot be run without him, the children who will have to go a year without their father. She speaks of the solid, dependable reality of their life, the life he is so willing to gamble away on a fantastic rumor. This is the voice of his duty. This conflict rages for months. You feel the tension in the house, the weight of a decision that could either save his family or destroy it. The turning point comes with the new year, 1849. A group of men from his town, all consumed by the same fever, decide to form a company. They will travel together, for safety and for support. Suddenly, the dream is no longer a solitary fantasy. It has a plan, a start date, a list of names. It has become real. You are in the room for the final quiet conversation between Ethan and Sarah. He makes his promise. It is just for 1 year. 1 year to secure their future. He is not doing it to abandon them, but for them. You feel the terrible weight of her reluctant acceptance, the heart-wrenching moment she yields to a dream she does not share. The great gamble is on. The farm is now a whirlwind of frantic preparation. You watch as Ethan makes the first irreversible step. He sells his best team of oxen and a small, cherished parcel of land. It is a painful sacrifice, and you see him pour all the money, his entire worldly savings, into outfitting his expedition. You accompany him to the bustling river town of Independence, the jumping-off point for the westward trails. The town is a chaotic swirl of thousands of other men, all just like Ethan, all preparing to become 49ers. You follow him as he buys a sturdy wagon, another team of oxen, and the prescribed list of supplies: barrels of salted pork and flour, bags of beans, coffee, sugar, a pickaxe, a shovel, and a simple gold pan. Every purchase is another piece of his old life being converted into a ticket for a new one. Finally, on a crisp spring morning in 1849, the wagon is packed. The other men of his company are waiting. The moment of departure has arrived. You stand with him as he says his goodbyes. You witness the final, heartbreaking embrace with his wife, the quiet, tearful promises. You see him lift his children one last time, their small hands clinging to him. Then he turns his back on his home. You hear the sharp crack of his whip, the groan of the wagon wheels as they begin to turn, and he sets his face to the west. He does not look back. The river of his life has just been diverted, and you are following it into the vast, unknown wilderness. The dream of the West is a dream of open space, of endless horizons. But when you are in it, that endlessness can become a kind of prison. The horizon never gets any closer. The sun is relentless, and you are a tiny, crawling speck in a vast, silent and indifferent ocean of grass. You are about to learn the first great lesson of the trail. The wilderness does not care if you survive. You are on the move. It is the late spring of 1849, and you are part of a great, snaking river of humanity flowing west. You stand on a small rise and look back, and you see a line of white canvas-topped wagons stretching for miles, the prairie schooners, their tops billowing in the wind like the sails of a fleet of strange, land-bound ships. The mood in these first few weeks is one of hopeful, boisterous adventure. The hardships of home are behind you, the promise of gold is ahead. You fall in alongside Ethan's wagon. You quickly learn that the romantic image of riding in a covered wagon is a fantasy. The wagons are packed to the brim with up to 2,000 pounds of supplies, leaving no room for passengers. The ride is bone-jarring and rough, so you walk. You walk beside the slow, plodding oxen, your boots sinking into the thick dust of the trail, 10, 15, sometimes 20 miles a day. You walk until your feet are a mass of blisters, and your legs are a dull, constant ache. Your world becomes a simple, grinding routine. You wake before dawn, the air cold and sharp. You choke down a quick breakfast of hard biscuit and coffee. You help yoke the stubborn oxen. And then you walk. All day you walk, your eyes fixed on the back of the wagon in front of you. The landscape of the Great Plains is beautiful at first. A sea of grass that ripples in the wind under an immense empty sky. But after weeks, the beauty becomes a crushing monotony. There are no landmarks, no sense of progress. The horizon is a perfect, unbroken circle that you never seem to get any closer to. In the evening, the wagons form a circle, not so much for protection, but to create a corral for the livestock. Fires are lit. The air fills with the smell of wood smoke and frying bacon. The meal is always the same: salted pork, beans, and hardtack, a jarringly hard biscuit. For a few hours there is a sense of community, the sound of a fiddle or a shared song pushing back the immense silence of the prairie. But the rest is always brief. Before dawn, the cycle begins again. This is the first battle of your journey, the war against the vastness and the monotony of the environment. But a far more terrifying enemy is waiting for you, an enemy that is silent, invisible, and utterly merciless. It strikes the wagon train in the middle of a hot, dusty afternoon. A man complains of cramps. Within an hour, he is violently ill. By nightfall, he is dead. It is cholera. The disease, born from a contaminated water source, sweeps through the wagon train like a wildfire. Panic sets in. No one knows how it spreads or how to stop it. It seems to kill at random. A person can be healthy at breakfast and be buried in a shallow, hastily dug grave by sunset. You are there with Ethan, as he helps bury a friend from his company, a young man who just the day before had been talking excitedly about the gold he would find. You witness the grim, simple ceremony. A body wrapped in a blanket, a short prayer said over a small mound of earth by the side of the trail, marked only by a simple wooden cross or a pile of stones. There is no time for proper grief. The wagon train must move on. The sense of adventure is gone completely, replaced by a deep, gnawing fear. You eye your neighbors with suspicion. You scrutinize every water source. You are no longer a band of hopeful adventurers. You are a convoy of refugees, fleeing an invisible killer. The struggle is no longer against the landscape, but against the very water you must drink to survive. You have learned the second great lesson of the trail. The most dangerous threats are the ones you cannot see. A journey is a story, and every story needs a final act. After crossing the endless, flat expanse of the plains and the desolate emptiness of the desert, the final challenge rises from the earth like a fortress wall, the Sierra Nevada. A barrier of granite and ice, the last great gatekeeper between you and the golden promise of California. You are about to pay the final, physical price for your dream. You have survived the plains. You have survived the cholera. You have crossed the vast, waterless expanse of the Great Basin Desert, a landscape of cracked earth and shimmering heat that has baked the very hope out of you. Your supplies are perilously low, the oxen are gaunt and exhausted, and the faces of your fellow travelers are etched with a deep, weary desperation. And now, you stand before your final, most terrifying obstacle. Looming before you is the Sierra Nevada mountain range, a colossal wall of granite and pine that seems to touch the sky. The air is already colder here. You see snow on the highest peaks, a beautiful but terrifying sight. It is late in the season, and you know you are in a desperate race against the coming winter. The name of the Donner Party, the ill-fated group from just a few years before who became trapped by an early snow and resorted to unspeakable horrors to survive, is a constant, unspoken whisper on everyone's lips. You must get over this wall, and you must do it now. The ascent is a brutal, heartbreaking slog. The trail, which was a wide, flat road on the plains, now shrinks to a narrow, treacherous track winding its way up the mountainside. The grade is so steep that the oxen can no longer pull the fully loaded wagons. You are part of the grueling process of unloading. You carry heavy sacks of flour and barrels of pork on your own back, ferrying the contents of your wagon up the slope piece by painful piece. Then comes the work of getting the wagons up. You watch as teams of men join their exhausted oxen, putting their own shoulders to the heavy wheels, their muscles straining, their lungs burning in the thin mountain air. You hear the crack of the whip, the shouts of the men, the groans of the animals, and the constant terrible sound of the wooden wheels scraping against bare rock. Every foot of progress is a victory. You witness the ever-present danger. A wagon slips, its wheel teetering over the edge of a steep drop-off, and it is only by a frantic, collective effort that it is saved from being lost forever. The days are a blur of this same repetitive, back-breaking labor. The nights are bitterly cold. Your flimsy tents offer little protection against the piercing mountain wind. You come to a section of the trail that is completely impassable, a sheer rock face that the wagons cannot climb. There is no way around. You are a witness to the incredible, desperate ingenuity of the pioneers. They completely dismantle a wagon, taking it apart piece by piece. You then join the human chain, passing the wheels, the axles, the floorboards, and the canvas cover up the rock face, hand over hand. At the top, the wagon is painstakingly reassembled. and then you must go back down and do it all over again for the next one. It is an act of sheer, stubborn, and unbreakable will. As you climb higher, the first snowflakes begin to fall. They are light at first, a beautiful, silent warning, but they bring with them a new and urgent terror. The memory of the Donner Party is no longer a distant story. It is a possible future. The race is on. Finally, after weeks of this agonizing labor, you reach the summit of the pass. You stand, gasping for breath, and you look out. To the east, you see the harsh, desolate landscape you have just conquered, and to the west, you see it, the rolling, green, sun-drenched foothills of California. It is a vision of paradise, the promised land. The sight fills you with a profound, exhausted sense of triumph. But the ordeal is not yet over. The descent is just as dangerous as the climb. You help lock the wagon wheels and attach heavy ropes, and you join the men in a human tug of war, slowly, carefully lowering the wagons down the steep, treacherous western slopes. When you finally reach the bottom, the air is warmer. The ground is soft. You have made it. You are in California. You look at Ethan. He is thinner, his clothes are in rags, his body is bruised and battered, but he is alive. The great, terrible journey is over. A new, fragile hope begins to dawn. Now, all that is left is to find the gold. The sea is a promise and a threat. For the rich, it is a highway of adventure, but for the poor, it is a crowded, floating purgatory, a test of endurance that must be passed before a new life can even begin. You are about to trade the solid ground of home for the violent uncertainty of the ocean and learn that the journey to a golden mountain begins in a dark, suffocating hell. Your perspective shifts, leaving the dusty plains of America behind. You are now on a crowded, noisy dock in the bustling port of Canton, China. The air is thick with the smell of salt, fish, and the sweat of thousands of hopeful and desperate people. You are with May, a young woman whose family has sold nearly everything they own to buy her and her brother passage to a place they call Gam San Gold Mountain, California. It is a place of myth, a land where a person can earn a fortune and return to save their family from famine. You feel her fear and the immense weight of her family's hope as she takes a final look at the shores of her homeland. You board the ship, and you are immediately herded down into the dark, airless belly of the vessel. This is steerage, and it will be your home for the next several weeks. The space is a cavern of misery. You see hundreds of people, mostly men, packed onto narrow, stacked wooden bunks. There is no privacy, no fresh air. The only light comes from a few swinging, smoky lanterns. The air is already thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and the first waves of seasickness. The voyage begins. The ship creaks and groans as it meets the vast, rolling expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Your life becomes a torment of constant, nauseating motion. Disease spreads quickly in the cramped, unsanitary conditions. You see men suffering from fever, their moans a constant, miserable chorus in the darkness. The food is a meager, repetitive ration of rice and salted fish, often crawling with weevils. You cling to the small wooden bunk, your body aching, your stomach churning, your mind sustained only by the whispered stories of Gold Mountain. This is the first price of the dream, a journey that feels less like a voyage and more like an imprisonment. After what feels like an eternity, you arrive at the coast of Panama. You have reached the crossroads of the world. You disembark from the ship into a wall of oppressive, humid heat. The port town of Chagres is a chaotic, swampy settlement teeming with gold seekers from all over the world. This, you learn, is only the beginning of the next ordeal, the crossing of the disease-ridden isthmus. You and May, along with a small group, hire a dugout canoe poled by local guides to take you up the Chagres River. You travel under a thick, green canopy of jungle, the air alive with the buzz of insects and the calls of strange birds. The heat is suffocating. The threat of malaria and yellow fever, the dreaded Chagra's fever, hangs over you like a shroud. You see other travelers, sick and delirious, left on the muddy riverbanks to die. After the river journey, you must cross the mountains on foot, following a rough, treacherous mule track through the jungle. The mud is thick and deep, and the rain is relentless. You slip and fall, your clothes soaked, your body pushed to the absolute limit. Finally, you reach Panama City on the Pacific coast, only to find another kind of purgatory. The city is overwhelmed with thousands of other gold seekers, all waiting desperately for a ship to take them north to San Francisco. You must wait for weeks in the crowded, unsanitary town where cholera is rampant. You finally secure passage on another overcrowded, miserable steamship. You are herded back into the dark confines of steerage for the final leg of your journey. But this time, there is a new feeling in the air. With every passing day, you are sailing closer to your destination. The hope, which had been almost extinguished by the hardship of the journey, is slowly, cautiously rekindled. Then, one morning, you are on the deck, and you see it. Through the morning fog, you see the high golden hills of California. The ship passes through the narrow strait of the Golden Gate. You have arrived. You are at Gold Mountain. You stand with May, looking at the strange, chaotic boomtown of San Francisco, a city of tents and half-finished wooden buildings. The horrific journey is over. You feel her profound, bone-deep exhaustion and a new, fragile and anxious hope for the future. Gold has always been in these hills. For generations, it was a trade, a patient craft of skill and knowledge, a quiet conversation between a man and a river. But what you are about to witness is the end of that trade and the beginning of a rush. It is the moment a quiet, predictable rhythm is shattered by a loud, chaotic, and desperate noise. Your journey pulls back from the frantic preparations of the coming migration, and you find yourself in the serene, sun-baked landscape of California in the summer of 1848. The great wave of 49ers has not yet arrived. Here, in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada, the world is still quiet, governed by the ancient rhythms of the sun and the seasons. The air is clear, and the only sounds are the rush of the river and the gentle whisper of the wind through the pines. It is in this quiet world that you meet Joaquin. He is a minero from Sonora, Mexico, a man whose knowledge of gold runs in his blood. He is not a frantic amateur who has caught a fever. He is a professional, a craftsman. You watch him as he works, and you see that his labor is not a gamble, but a science. You see him stand at the edge of the river, not just looking at the water but reading it. He studies the currents, the bends in the riverbank, the places where the bedrock is exposed. He understands where the heavy gold will settle after a storm. He does not attack the river with a frantic energy. He approaches it with a quiet, patient respect. You watch him use his batia, a wide, shallow wooden pan, with an expert, almost effortless grace, swirling the sand and water until only the small, heavy yellow flakes remain. His movements are efficient, practiced, and calm. His camp is a reflection of his work. It is not a chaotic mess of tents and mud, but a small, orderly settlement. He has built a simple but sturdy shelter of adobe and wood. There is a clean, swept area for his fire. His tools are neatly arranged, and his supplies are carefully stored. This is not a temporary stop on the way to a fortune. It is a life. It is hard, yes, but it is stable, predictable, and profitable. He is part of a long tradition of experienced miners from Mexico, Chile, and Peru, men who brought with them centuries of accumulated knowledge. Then, you witness the first drops of the coming flood. A small group of American prospectors, fresh from San Francisco, stumbles into the area. They are the opposite of Joaquin in every way. They are loud, boisterous, and they attack the river with a kind of violent, ignorant enthusiasm. You watch them dig haphazardly, tear up the riverbank, and pan with a clumsy, splashing inefficiency, finding little but frustration. You see Joaquin watch them from a distance with a mixture of pity and quiet contempt. They do not understand the river. They see it not as a partner to be understood, but as an adversary to be conquered. You are there when the first interaction happens. An American, his pan empty, approaches Joaquin and looks with greedy, suspicious eyes at the small pile of gold dust in Joaquin's batir. There is no shared language, but the meaning is clear. The American sees Joaquin not as a skilled professional, but as a foreigner, an obstacle standing between him and the gold he believes is his by right. The first group of Americans is small and disorganized, but the next day, another group arrives, and the day after that, another. The quiet of the canyon is replaced by the constant, jarring sound of their shouting and their clumsy digging. The clear river begins to run muddy with the dirt they are churning up. The chapter of Joaquin's quiet, orderly life is coming to a close. You are with him in the evening as he sits by his small, clean fire. He looks down the river, and where there was once only darkness and the sound of crickets, there is now a growing constellation of chaotic, flickering campfires. You can hear the sound of their loud, drunken singing and the occasional angry shout drifting up on the night air. You feel his deep, unsettling sense of foreboding. He has the skill, he has the knowledge, and he was here first. But he is a man of order in a world that is about to be consumed by chaos. The dream of a destination is always perfect. It is a landscape of the mind, painted with the colors of hope and desire. But the reality of a place is something else entirely. It is mud and noise and the jostling, competing ambitions of 1,000 other dreamers. You have finally reached the end of the trail. You are about to step out of the dream and into the chaotic reality of the California goldfields. You have done it. After the endless, monotonous plains and the brutal, soul-crushing passage over the Sierra Nevada, you have finally descended into the rolling, sun-baked foothills of California. The air is warmer here, the earth is green. You feel a surge of renewed hope. The great ordeal of the journey is over. The promise of a new life is just ahead. You follow the growing stream of other wagons and travelers, all heading towards the sound of the river. But as you draw closer, the first signs of disillusionment appear. The pristine wilderness you imagined is gone. The hillsides are scarred, the trees clear-cut for lumber. The river, when you finally see it, is not the clear, shimmering stream of the stories. It is a muddy, brown, and tormented channel, its banks torn apart, diverted into 1,000 crude sluices and ditches. And the sound, it is not the gentle rush of water, but a deafening industrial roar of 10,000 men shouting, digging, and rocking their wooden cradles. You have arrived at the diggings, and it is a vision of hell. You stand with Ethan on a small bluff overlooking the river, and you witness his hopeful expression crumble into one of stunned disbelief. Before you is not a paradise, but a sprawling, chaotic shantytown that stretches for miles along the riverbank. It is a squalid collection of canvas tents, crude wooden shacks, and open-air shelters, all caked in mud and filth. The air is thick with wood smoke and the stench of unwashed bodies and poorly dug latrines. This is the beautiful dream of California made real. Your immediate goal is simple: to find a place to start work. But as you and Ethan descend into the chaos, you realize the absurdity of that task. Every single foot of the riverbank is already claimed. You see thousands of men, packed shoulder to shoulder, standing knee-deep in the freezing water, their faces gaunt and burned by the sun, their eyes holding a look of fierce, desperate obsession. They guard their small, 10-foot square claims with a jealous and violent intensity. You walk for miles along the river, searching for any unclaimed patch of ground. You are a greenhorn, a newcomer, and you are met with suspicion and hostility. Men glare at you as you pass, their hands resting on the knives or pistols tucked into their belts. The law here is not written in books. It is the simple, brutal miner's code, where justice belongs to who had the loudest voice, the fastest draw, or the biggest gang behind them. The camp is a testament to this lawlessness. For every tent dedicated to sleeping, there seem to be 3 dedicated to vice. You pass dozens of makeshift saloons and gambling dens, where men, their faces a mixture of greed and despair, risk their week's findings on a single turn of a card. You witness a brief, brutal fistfight break out over a perceived slight, a chaotic explosion of violence that is over as quickly as it began. After a full day of searching, your hope has curdled into a weary, gnawing anxiety. The beautiful dream has been shattered. Ethan has not found a land of opportunity, but a muddy, overcrowded, and hostile industrial camp where he is just one more desperate soul in a sea of thousands. Finally, late in the afternoon, you find a small, overlooked patch of ground on a bend in the river, a spot that the more experienced miners have clearly ignored as worthless. Ethan stakes his claim. He has traveled 2,000 miles for this, a few square feet of mud and rock. You stand with him as he looks at his pathetic patch of land, the deafening noise of the camp surrounding him. The great adventure is over. The grim, hard work of survival has just begun. There is a rhythm to the work of a farmer, a partnership with the seasons that creates life. But the work of a gold miner is a different rhythm entirely. It is a frantic, desperate, and violent assault upon the earth, a process of tearing the land apart in the hope of finding a single glittering flake of inorganic life. You are about to learn the rhythm of that work, a beat that is measured in exhaustion and disappointment. Your day begins before the sun, in the damp chill of a California morning. You are with Ethan on his small, pitiful claim. There is no gentle awakening. The alarm clock is the deep, aching pain in your muscles from the day before. You watch him force down a meager breakfast of hardtack and salted meat, washed down with bitter, black coffee. There is no conversation, only the grim, silent preparation for the day's assault on the river. You follow him to the water's edge. This is the world of placer mining, the method of the common man. The work is a 2-part agony. First, there is the digging. You watch Ethan stand knee-deep in the shallows, his shovel plunging into the heavy, wet gravel of the riverbed. He shovels the mud and rock into a simple wooden bucket, his back and shoulders straining with every heavy load. When the bucket is full, the second, more delicate torment begins. He wades deeper into the main current of the river, the ice-cold water, a shocking, numbing presence that seeps through his worn leather boots. He swaps the bucket for a shallow metal pan. He lowers the pan into the water, letting it fill, and begins the motion that will define his entire existence here. It is a gentle, circular, rocking movement, a carefully controlled swirl that washes the lighter sand and gravel over the edge of the pan. He repeats this motion again and again, his face a mask of intense concentration. The goal is to let the water carry away everything but the heaviest materials, where the gold, if any, might be hiding. After several minutes of this rhythmic swirling, all that is left is a thin layer of heavy black sand at the bottom of the pan. This is the moment of truth. You lean in with him, your eyes scanning the dark sediment for a telltale glint of yellow. Most of the time, there is nothing. The pan is empty. It is a moment of quiet, crushing disappointment. And then he must begin the entire process again. Dig, carry, wade, and swirl. You witness him do this for hours. His hands, constantly submerged in the freezing water, are raw and cracked. His back screams in protest. But he continues, driven by the faint, desperate hope that the next pan will be the one. Occasionally, his patience is rewarded. You see it. A few tiny, almost microscopic flakes of gold glittering in the black sand. He carefully uses the tip of his knife to pick them out and place them in a small leather pouch. It is a moment of fleeting triumph, but you both know the truth. A full day of this back-breaking labor might yield $1 worth of gold dust. It is not a fortune, it is barely subsistence. You see that this method is too slow, too inefficient. Like the other miners, Ethan spends what little he has to build a rocker or cradle. It is a heavy, clumsy wooden box set on rockers like a child's cradle. It allows him to process more dirt at once, but it demands even more physical labor. You are part of the new, grueling rhythm. Shovel the dirt into the top of the cradle, pour buckets of water over it, and with one hand violently rock the entire heavy apparatus back and forth, for hours on end. The work is stupefying in its monotony and its physical demands. You stand with Ethan at the end of the day. The sun is setting. His body is a geography of pain. He is soaked to the bone, his muscles are screaming, and a deep, rattling cough has begun to settle in his chest. You know that this work, this constant exposure to the cold and wet, is what led to the widespread disease that haunts these camps. He opens his small leather pouch and pours the day's findings into the pan. It is a pathetic, glittering smear of dust. It is perhaps enough to buy another meager meal of pork and beans, but not much more. You feel the full weight of his predicament. The hope that drove him across the continent has been ground down into this daily, brutal calculus of survival. He is not getting rich. He is simply destroying his body for the privilege of not starving to death today, so that he can wake up and do it all again tomorrow. In a gold rush, there are two kinds of prospectors. There are those who dig in the cold earth, searching for a flake of color in a pan of mud. And then there are those who stand on the dry ground, selling the pans. You are about to meet a man who understands that the most valuable mine in California is not a riverbed, but the desperate, hopeful heart of the miner himself. It is dusk in the mining camp. You walk with Ethan away from the river, his body a single, throbbing ache after 12 hours of back-breaking labor. His small leather pouch is slightly heavier than it was this morning, but his food supplies are nearly gone. To work tomorrow, he must buy supplies tonight. You leave the muddy, grim rows of miners' tents and head towards the center of the camp. There, you see a single large canvas tent, a beacon of light and activity in the growing darkness. A hand-painted sign out front simply reads, "Supplies." This is the domain of Silas, the camp merchant. You step inside with Ethan, and the contrast to the world outside is staggering. Here, there is order, abundance, and the smell of money. The tent is lit by several bright, expensive whale oil lamps. You see sacks of flour and beans stacked high, barrels of salted pork, crates of tools, and shelves lined with tobacco, coffee, and bottles of whiskey. You see sturdy, durable denim trousers, the kind made by men like Levi Strauss, hanging from a line. It is an oasis of commerce in a desert of desperate labor. Behind the counter stands Silas. He is not like the other men in this camp. His hands are clean, his clothes are well made, and his face is not gaunt with hunger or exhaustion. He has the calm, assessing eyes of a man who knows he is in a position of absolute power. You listen as Ethan, his voice weary, lists what he needs. A new shovel, as his has cracked, and a week's worth of flour, bacon, and coffee. Silas nods, his movements unhurried. He places the items on the counter. "The shovel is $15, he says, his voice flat. "Flour, $6. Bacon, $4. Coffee, $4. You see Ethan flinch. The total is $29 more than a month's wages for a laborer back east. Here, it is the price of another week of survival. You watch as Ethan pulls out his small pouch of gold dust, the sum total of his last 2 weeks of grueling work. Silas takes the pouch and, with the delicate precision of a jeweler, pours the dust onto a small brass scale. He squints at the measurement. $26, he announces. "You're short." In this moment, you feel the cold, brutal logic of the camp's economy. There is no credit here, no community spirit. There is only supply and demand. Silas has the goods, the miners have the need. This is the core conflict of the camp, the desperate needs of the community of laborers versus the cold, unblinking calculus of commerce. You understand now how men like the real-life Sam Brannan became California's first millionaire, not by digging for gold, but by selling shovels and other equipment at exorbitant prices. Silas is simply following that same golden rule. You witness the quiet, humiliating negotiation. Ethan must trade back the coffee to afford the other essentials. The deal is done. His pouch is empty. He is left with a new shovel and just enough food to keep him from starving while he works to earn enough to come back and buy more. You walk with Ethan back to his small, cold tent, the new shovel heavy in his hand. He looks back at the merchant's tent, a bright, warm hub of prosperity. He is trapped in a cycle. He is working to find gold, not to get rich, but to pay the very man who is getting rich from his labor. He thought he was a prospector, a master of his own destiny. But you and he are beginning to understand that he is merely a customer. The setting of the sun brings an end to the day's hard labor, but it brings a different kind of challenge. The physical exhaustion is replaced by a profound, gnawing loneliness, a darkness of the soul. You are about to witness the desperate and often dangerous ways men tried to light up that internal night, seeking connection and escape in a world of chaos. The sun dips below the dusty brown hills, and a profound change comes over the mining camp. The rhythmic grinding sounds of 1,000 rockers and shovels fall silent. A weary quiet settles over the river, broken only by the crackle of campfires and the low murmur of exhausted men. You are with Ethan as he finishes his repetitive, lonely meal of pork and beans. The physical work of the day is done, but now the mental work of enduring the night begins. He is thousands of miles from his family, a solitary soul in a sea of strangers. You feel his crushing loneliness, a feeling that is almost as painful as the ache in his back. It is this feeling that drives him and hundreds of other men to rise from their lonely fires and walk towards the center of the camp. You are drawn by the sound of a distant, out-of-tune fiddle and the yellow, inviting glow of lamplight spilling from the largest tents. You are heading towards the camp's beating, chaotic heart, its saloons and gambling dens. You enter a large, smoky tent with Ethan. The air inside is thick with the smell of cheap whiskey, tobacco smoke, and unwashed bodies. It is a world of frantic, desperate energy. You see men crowded shoulder to shoulder around rough plank tables, their faces illuminated by flickering lanterns. This is a place where men with a little gold or who were drowning in sorrow could easily lose everything. This is where the drifters, deserters, gamblers, and gunslingers all came together, a magnet for those looking to vanish into the dust. Ethan takes his small pouch of gold dust, the meager result of days of back-breaking labor, and buys a single, expensive glass of whiskey. He finds a place to stand and watch. He is here not for the drink or the cards, but for the simple, human need to be in a room full of people, to hear other voices, to escape for a few hours the crushing silence of his own thoughts. You turn your attention to a card game at a nearby table. The stakes are terrifyingly high. You watch a young miner, his face flushed with drink and hope, push his entire week's earnings, a heavy leather pouch of gold dust, into the center of the table. You see the turn of the final card, the look of wild elation on his opponent's face, and the sudden, sickening collapse of the young man's expression as he realizes he has lost everything. He has traded a week of brutal physical labor for a single moment of bad luck. This is the financial ruin that is the nightly entertainment in these tents. The night wears on, the whiskey flows, and the mood grows louder and more volatile. The desperate search for connection sours into drunken aggression. You are standing near Ethan when an argument breaks out at the card table, an accusation of cheating. Voices are raised. You witness how quickly the atmosphere can turn. A table is overturned. A drunken brawl erupts. A chaotic explosion of fists and curses. A knife flashes in the lamplight. The fight spills out into the muddy street. There is no town watch, no sheriff to restore order. Here, justice was less about due process and more about who had the loudest voice, the fastest draw, or the biggest gang behind them. The fight ends as quickly as it began, leaving one man bleeding in the mud. You follow Ethan as he leaves the saloon, the spell of false camaraderie now broken by the reality of the violence. You walk back through the darkened camp. The night is full of quiet, predatory menace. You see men passed out in the dirt, their pockets likely long since emptied by thieves. You understand that in a place like this, murder was common. The desperate search for connection has led only to a landscape of greater danger. You arrive back at Ethan's small, cold tent. He is alone again. The single glass of whiskey has cost him a significant portion of his day's earnings. He sought to escape his loneliness, but the world he found was not one of community, but one of predatory, dangerous strangers. Envy is a powerful poison. It sees success not as something to be emulated, but as something to be stolen. And when that envy is mixed with the fear of the other, it can curdle into a righteous mob. You are about to witness the moment when the chaotic competition of the goldfields is codified into law. A law designed not to create justice, but to eliminate the competition. Your journey takes you away from the chaotic American camps and back to the world of Joaquin, the skilled Sonoran minero. It is now 1,850. After being pushed from his original claim, he and a small community of other Latin American miners have established a new, modest camp in a remote canyon. Here, there is a semblance of the order and professionalism you witnessed before. They work together, sharing their knowledge, and their efforts are successful. Their camp is clean, and their small pile of gold dust grows steadily, a testament to their skill and hard work. But their success is a magnet for resentment. You witness the growing hostility from the struggling American miners in a nearby camp. You see them watching Joaquin's community from the canyon rim, their faces dark with envy. You hear their muttered, racist curses. The narration reminds you that men like Joaquin, the Latin American and Chinese miners, who were often more experienced, were seen not as pioneers but as rivals. To the newcomers, the gold in this American soil was their birthright, and every ounce in a foreigner's pouch was an ounce stolen from them. The simmering resentment is about to be given the full force of the law. One afternoon, you are in Joaquin's camp when a group of armed American miners descends from the canyon rim. They are not just a random mob. They are led by a man wearing a badge, a newly appointed tax collector for the brand new state of California. You are a witness to the formal and brutal act of expulsion. The tax collector unrolls a piece of paper and, in a loud, self-important voice, announces the passage of the foreign miners' tax of 1,850. He declares that all miners who are not American citizens must now pay a hefty monthly fee to the state for the privilege of working the land. The fee he names is an exorbitant sum, an amount he knows is impossible for most of them to pay. You feel the stunned, angry silence that falls over Joaquin's camp. They know what this is. It is not a tax. It is an eviction notice written on legal paper. It is a tool designed specifically to drive non-white miners out of the gold fields. You listen as Joaquin, acting as the group's spokesman, tries to argue. He speaks of their right to be here, of the work they have done. But his reasonable words are met with angry shouts and the cold, hard reality of the armed men who surround you. The confrontation escalates quickly. The tax collector demands payment on the spot. When Joaquin and the others cannot produce the full amount, he declares their claims forfeit. This is the signal the mob has been waiting for. You witness the intense racial violence that follows. The American miners swarm into the small camp, kicking over tents, smashing equipment, and seizing the gold that has been so painstakingly gathered. It is a chaotic, one-sided assault. You see Joaquin, a proud and skilled man trying to defend his home, only to be beaten to the ground. After a few minutes of brutal, destructive work, it is over. The mob has taken what they want. They now occupy the claim, the fruits of Joaquin's labor now theirs by right of force, and a flimsy piece of legislation. You are with Joaquin and his small, battered community as they are forced to leave, carrying only what they could grab. They have been stripped of everything, their homes, their tools, their gold, their livelihood. You watch as Joaquin looks back one last time at the canyon where he had built a life, his face a mask of pain and bitter injustice. The core conflict has been brutally resolved. Racial prejudice and greed have triumphed over experience and justice. The law, which was supposed to bring order to the chaos, has instead become the most effective tool of the mob. You have just witnessed the dream of the gold rush being officially and violently restricted by the color of a man's skin. The story of the gold rush is often told as a story of men, of their search for a glittering prize in the earth. But every camp, every community is an ecosystem, and for every man digging in the river, there was another, often unseen world of labor that made his work possible. You are about to enter that world, to witness the story not of mining gold, but of washing the mud from the clothes of the men who did. Your journey shifts now to follow May, who has survived the perilous voyage to Gold Mountain. You are with her as she and her brother arrive in the same chaotic, muddy mining camp where Ethan now toils. But for May, the experience is different and far more dangerous. In this world of 10,000 men, you feel the weight of every single pair of eyes on her. As one of the very few women, and a Chinese woman at that, she is an object of intense and often unwelcome curiosity. You feel her vulnerability like a physical presence. She and her brother have no intention of mining. They have come to work. And in a camp filled with men who have forgotten what a clean shirt feels like, they quickly find their niche. You are there as they set up their small, crude laundry service near the riverbank. You witness the grueling, relentless nature of her labor, a kind of work that is just as backbreaking as that of any miner. Her day begins before dawn, hauling heavy wooden buckets of water from the river. A fire must be kept burning all day to heat the cauldrons. You watch her for hours, her hands raw and red, plunged in a mixture of hot water and harsh lye soap, scrubbing the filth and grime from the heavy canvas and wool trousers of the miners. She is a builder, a farmer, a midwife, a butcher, a doctor, and a teacher, all wrapped into one, or in her case, a laundress, a cook, a mender, and a businesswoman. The work is endless. From sunrise to sunset, she washes, rinses, and hangs the heavy, wet clothes on lines strung between the pine trees. This labor, while exhausting, is profitable. You see the miners, grateful for a small touch of civilization, readily pay for her services with pinches of gold dust from their pouches. You watch May at the end of each day, carefully weighing the day's earnings, her face a mask of quiet determination. Every golden flake is a symbol of survival for her family back home, but the money comes at a high price. You are a constant, silent witness to the daily threats she endures. You feel the leering, hostile stares of the men as she works. Her resilience is a quiet, constant battle. You are there one evening when a drunken miner stumbles over to her, grabbing at a piece of laundry, his words slurred and menacing. You feel May's terror, a cold, sharp spike of fear. Her brother quickly intervenes, his presence a fragile shield. The miner, after a moment of tense confrontation, wanders away, but the threat lingers in the air. You understand that her safety is a temporary, precarious thing in this lawless world. And then there is the loneliness. You feel her profound isolation, a stranger in a strange land, surrounded by a language she doesn't understand, and a people who see her as an alien. As the source notes, loneliness was the enemy too. Her only connection to the world she left behind is her brother. You see that she, like the other frontier women, is not a background character in the story. She is the backbone. While the men are chasing a fantasy, she is engaged in the real, essential, and uncelebrated work that keeps the camp from descending into complete squalor. She is not digging for gold. She is earning it, ounce by painful ounce, through a resilience that is as strong and unyielding as the mountains that surround you. At night, you watch her by the faint light of a candle, mending a tear in her brother's shirt, her face etched with exhaustion, but her spirit unbroken. In a world of visible dangers, a collapsing mineshaft, a drawn knife in a dark tent, the greatest threat is often the one you cannot see. It is a silent killer, an invisible predator that hides in the very water you drink to survive. You are about to face the true enemy of the 49er, a foe that claimed far more lives than greed or violence ever did, the sickness. It is the high summer of 1851. The heat is oppressive, and a thick haze of dust and wood smoke hangs over the camp. You have been with Ethan for 2 years now, and you have witnessed his slow, grinding descent from a hopeful adventurer into a weary, disillusioned laborer. His dream of a quick fortune is a distant, bitter memory. Now, his life is a simple, brutal calculus of survival. You are a witness to the grim reality of the camp's poor sanitation. The river, from which everyone drinks, is a murky brown soup, contaminated by the runoff from thousands of mining operations upstream and the filth from the latrines dug too close to its banks. Flies are a constant, buzzing plague. In this crowded, unsanitary world, disease was a major killer. The sickness comes for Ethan without warning. You are with him as he drinks deeply from the river after a long, hot day of labor. Within hours, the first, sharp cramps seize his stomach. A wave of nausea and dizziness washes over him. He stumbles back to his small, hot tent, thinking it is just a passing ailment. But as night falls, the sickness reveals its true, terrifying nature. It is cholera, or dysentery, the twin scourges of the camps. You are a helpless, silent witness to his suffering in the lonely darkness of his tent. The disease is a violent, purgative force, draining his body of all its fluids and all its strength with terrifying speed. As the source material notes, it came from contaminated water and killed quickly within hours. Fever sets in, and he begins to drift in and out of consciousness. You are trapped with him in this private, agonizing hell. There is no one to help. In the camps, a sick man is a pariah, a source of contagion to be avoided at all costs. His neighbors in the nearby tents, hearing his groans, simply turn away, hoping the sickness does not visit them next. You understand the stark truth. There were no doctors, only home remedies and hope, and Ethan has neither. His life is now a primal internal battle. You are a witness to his fever dreams. You see him thrashing in his sweat-soaked bedroll, muttering the names of his wife and children. He is back on his farm in Missouri, the cool, clean water of his well, a torturous mirage. His promise to them, to return a rich man, becomes a desperate, ragged mantra in the darkness. It is the only thing tethering his spirit to his failing body. For 2 days he lies on the precipice of death. His strength is gone. He is too weak to even crawl to his water bucket. Dehydration, the final quiet killer, begins to set in. Then, a small act of kindness. You see May, the young Chinese laundress, pause by his silent tent. She has not seen him for days. Hesitantly, she leaves a small clay pot of boiled clean water and a piece of dry bread on the ground near the entrance, and then quickly moves away. It is a small gesture, a quiet acknowledgement of a shared humanity in this brutal place. That evening his fever breaks. You are there as he awakens, his mind clear for the first time in days. He sees the pot of water. With a monumental effort he crawls to it and drinks. The water is life. He has survived. But when he finally emerges from his tent a week later, you see the true cost of his survival. He is a skeletal figure, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. He is a ghost of the strong, hopeful man who left his farm 2 years ago. He checks his small stash of gold dust. It is gone. likely stolen while he was delirious. He has nothing. He has won the battle against death, but it has taken everything from him. To claim a new world, you must first convince yourself that it is empty. You must look at a home and see only wilderness. Look at a people and see only obstacles. The American frontier wasn't empty. It was occupied by hundreds of indigenous nations who had called the land home for centuries, even millennia. You are about to witness the brutal, tragic process of making it empty. A war fought not against an army, but against a people in their own homes. Your journey now takes you away from the chaotic society of the miners and into the surrounding hills and valleys. This is a quieter, older world, the ancestral homeland of the native tribes who have lived here for thousands of years. But you see immediately that the gold rush is a poison that has seeped into the very soil and water. You stand by the river, away from the main diggings, and you see the first, slow-acting weapon of this war. The once clear water is a thick, muddy brown, choked with the silt and debris from the mining operations upstream. You learn that the rivers were clogged with mining waste, destroying their food sources. The great salmon runs have ceased. The plants that the native people have relied on for generations are dying, poisoned by the runoff. It is a quiet, environmental form of warfare, a slow, patient starvation of an entire people. But there is a faster, more brutal war being waged as well. Miners, seeing them as a hindrance, waged a genocidal campaign of massacres. The native people are not seen as human beings with rights to the land, but as obstacles, or even as dangerous animals to be cleared away. You are in the camp with Ethan one evening when a man stands on a barrel, his voice full of a righteous, drunken fury. He speaks of a local tribe, accusing them of stealing livestock. He calls for a volunteer militia to deal with the problem. You watch as a group of miners, their faces hard with greed and racial hatred, take up their rifles and ride out. This is not an act of law. It is the formation of a lynch mob. You are a silent, horrified witness as this group descends upon a small, undefended native village. There is no battle. There is only a one-sided slaughter. The miners ride through the village, their guns firing, their mission not one of justice, but of extermination. It is a scene of unimaginable brutality, a savage act committed by men who call themselves civilized. The most chilling part comes after. You learn the terrible truth of the state's involvement. The new California state even paid bounties for Native American scalps, turning murder into a government-funded enterprise. The men you just watched were not just a mob, they were, in the eyes of their government, contractors performing a state-sanctioned service. This is the brutal irony that defines your experience. The newcomers, who believe they are bringing civilization to a savage land, are the ones committing the most savage acts imaginable. They are building their new world on a foundation of genocide. The chapter of this war is written in numbers, in a demographic collapse so staggering it is hard to comprehend. You learn that between 1,848 and 1,870, California's Native American population plummeted from about 150,000 to just 30,000. It is a near total annihilation. You are left with Ethan, who is deeply and profoundly shaken by what he has seen. He came here to dig for gold, to build a better life for his family. He did not come here to be a party to the extermination of a people. The golden dream of California, which was already tarnished by hardship and greed, is now irrevocably stained with the blood of innocence. The land itself, which he once saw as a source of promise, now feels like a vast and haunted graveyard. Hope can be a rational thing, a calculation of odds. But there is another kind of hope, the kind that thrives in the dark, born of pure desperation. It is not a calculation, it is a fever. It feeds on whispers, on rumors, on the last, flickering possibility that this time it will be different. You are about to join one last chase, a journey fueled by the most powerful and dangerous hope of all, the final one. It is 1852. The golden age of the individual prospector is over, though not everyone has accepted it yet. You are with Ethan in a camp that feels more like a wake than a community. The easy, accessible placer gold is largely gone. The men are sullen, disillusioned, and broke. Ethan is among them, a man haunted by sickness, violence, and years of fruitless, back-breaking labor. He is trapped, with no money to continue and no money to go home. The dream is a dead weight in his soul. Then, a whisper arrives in the camp, carried by a traveler from another settlement. It is a rumor, a story of a new strike, a massive discovery of placer gold in a remote, unexplored canyon in the mountains, a place someone has nicknamed Last Chance Gulch. You witness the effect of this rumor on the near-dead camp. It is like a spark falling on dry tinder. A manic, feverish energy ignites. Men who were just moments ago staring blankly into their empty gold pans are now speaking with a wild, excited gleam in their eyes. This is it. This is the real strike, the one they were promised all along. You are with Ethan as he battles with himself. The logical, weary part of him, the part that has been beaten down by years of disappointment, knows it is probably a lie. But the other part of him, the young farmer who gambled everything to come here, wants to believe. It is the core conflict of his entire journey, hope versus despair, playing out for one final time. You watch as he makes his decision. He will make one last gamble. As the source material puts it, to go west was to gamble everything. He sells the last of his possessions of any value, his sturdy wagon, sold for a fraction of its worth, and a few of his best tools. He buys a single weary-looking mule and just enough flour and salted meat for a few weeks. It is everything he has left in the world. You join him and a small, ragged band of other desperate miners as they set out from the camp, chasing this rumor into the mountains. The journey is a harsh echo of his original trek west. It is a mix of grueling physical hardship and a brittle, almost hysterical hope. They speak of what they will do with their fortunes, of the lives they will return to. Their words are a desperate shield against the grim reality of their situation. After a week of hard travel, you arrive at the place on the crude map. You enter a narrow, rocky canyon. This is Last Chance Gulch. And it is empty. It is a barren, sun-baked canyon, filled with nothing but rock and dust. You see the signs that a few other miners have been here before them. A few hastily dug pits, an abandoned, broken shovel, but that is all. There is no gold. There was never any significant amount of gold. The rumor was a lie, or a wild exaggeration born of a single man finding a single lucky nugget. The place is, and always was, completely played out. You witness the moment the truth lands. There is no shouting, no dramatic outburst. A profound, soul-crushing silence falls over the small group of men. You see one man sit down heavily on a rock and begin to weep, his shoulders shaking with silent, racking sobs. Another simply turns his mule around and begins the long, silent walk back, his face a mask of utter emptiness. You stay with Ethan. He does not move. He stands there, staring at the barren, worthless ground, his face completely blank. You can feel the last embers of his great dream turning to cold ash. He has gambled everything, again, and he has lost. He has no money, no supplies for a return journey, and now no hope. He slides to the ground, his back against a rock, and sits there as the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the empty gulch. His journey as an independent prospector, a journey that began with such bright, boundless hope on his Missouri farm, has ended here, in a dusty, silent, and aptly named canyon. The battle between hope and despair is over. The dream of the prospector was a dream of freedom. It was the idea that a man with a pan and a strong back could be his own king, the master of his own destiny. But what happens when that dream dies? What happens when the gold is no longer in the shallow streams, but locked deep in the earth, accessible only to machines and money? You are about to witness the final transformation, the death of the prospector and the birth of the wage slave. You are with Ethan in the desolate silence of Last Chance Gulch. The last ember of his hope has been extinguished. He has nothing. No gold, no supplies, no money to take him home. He has only one choice: to turn back, to make the long, humiliating journey back to the main camps, not as a prospector, but as a beggar. You arrive with him back at the river, and you see that the world has changed in the time you have been away. The landscape of the gold rush has entered a new, industrial phase. The individual miner with his simple gold pan or rocker is a dying breed. You see that the riverbanks are now dominated by massive, noisy, and brutally efficient machinery. You see entire hillsides being washed away by powerful water cannons, a technique known as hydraulic mining. You see the entrances to deep, dark quartz mines, where men go underground to blast gold-bearing rock from the earth. The age of the individual dreamer is over. The age of the corporation has begun. Ethan is faced with the final, terrible choice of his journey. He can starve as a free man, or he can eat as a slave to the very system that has crushed his dream. You follow him as he walks towards the foreman of a hydraulic mining operation, a man with a hard face and a loud voice, directing the work of 100 other men. You watch the silent, humiliating transaction. Ethan, the proud farmer who set out to become his own master, asks for a job. Any job. The foreman looks him up and down, sees another broken prospector, and points him towards a long, muddy sluice box where other men are working, their faces blank with exhaustion. This is the moment of his final surrender. The great, beautiful dream of independence and wealth has died. The grim, unyielding reality of wage labor has taken its place. You experience his new life. It is a level of misery that makes his early days of placer mining seem almost idyllic. He works 10-hour shifts, standing in a river of cold, muddy sludge, sifting through the tons of rock and debris blasted from the hillside by the water cannons. The work is dangerous, the noise is deafening, and the labor is relentless. He is no longer his own boss. He works to the sound of a foreman's whistle. He is paid a few dollars a day, a pitiful wage, but he does not even see the money. It goes directly to the company, which deducts the cost of his lodging in a crowded, flea-ridden bunkhouse and the overpriced food at the company store. He is trapped, a cog in a great, destructive machine, working only to pay off the debt of his own survival. You see him among the other laborers. They are all men like him, men who came here with a dream and now share the same hollow-eyed look of defeat. They are the ones the stories will forget, the thousands who, as the history books note, were forced into labor for the large, mechanized mining companies that eventually took over the industry. You are with him at the end of a long shift. He is covered from head to toe in a thick, grey slime. His face is a mask of pure, bone-deep weariness. He has traded the freedom of the prospector for the security of a wage, but you can see in his eyes that he has lost something far more valuable than gold. He has lost himself. The man who gambled everything for a chance at freedom has become just another worker, indistinguishable from the factory hands he had left behind in the East. The gold rush is over for him. Gold is a heavy, simple metal. You can hold it in your hand. But there is another kind of gold, one that is abstract and weightless. It is the gold of commerce, of opportunity, of turning one man's desperate need into your own personal profit. This second kind of gold is lighter, but it builds empires. You are about to leave the world of the producers and enter the world of the capitalists. Your journey leaves the grim industrial landscape of the hydraulic mines behind. The image of Ethan, a weary, mud-caked wage slave, fades. You are transported to the chaotic, vibrant, and explosively growing city of San Francisco. It is a city being born in a frenzy, a place of mud-filled streets, half-finished wooden buildings, and a harbour choked with the abandoned, rotting ships of crews who deserted to chase their fortunes. The air here does not smell of pine and river water, but of money, ambition, and frantic construction. It is in this city that you find Silas, the camp merchant. He is no longer the proprietor of a single dusty tent. You are a silent witness in his new spacious office overlooking the harbour. He is dressed in a fine suit, his hands are clean, and his desk is a landscape of contracts, ledgers, and maps. The small, carefully weighed pinches of gold dust he collected from men like Ethan have been transformed into a river of capital. You watch him as he works, and you see that he is no longer in the business of selling shovels one by one. He is now in the business of building a world. You see him sign a contract to purchase a plot of land on a muddy street that he correctly predicts will be the city's main thoroughfare in a few years. You listen as he finalizes a deal to fund a shipping line, bringing more goods and more desperate dreamers to the shores of California. And then you witness the ultimate irony. You see him reviewing a proposal to invest in a new, large-scale hydraulic mining company, the very kind of operation that now employs Ethan for a pittance. He has ascended. He is no longer a shopkeeper serving the miners. He is now a financier who owns the mines themselves. This is the great, unspoken truth of the gold rush, the central conflict between the producer and the capitalist. You have witnessed the producers, men like Ethan and Joaquin, whose back-breaking physical labor created the raw wealth, tearing the gold from the earth. Their reward was exhaustion, displacement, and a wage that barely kept them alive. Now you are witnessing the capitalist. Silas did not risk his body in the cold river. He risked his money. He did not create the wealth. He built a system to capture the wealth that the producers created. The provided history is clear. The real riches were not made by the miners themselves, but by the merchants and entrepreneurs who sold them supplies. You understand that Silas is just one of many who followed this path. Men like Sam Brannan, who became California's first millionaire by selling shovels and other equipment at exorbitant prices, laid the blueprint. Silas has followed it to perfection. You are with him as he leaves his office and walks through the bustling city he is helping to build. He passes a group of ragged, broken-down men looking for menial work on the docks. You recognize the hollow-eyed look of the failed prospector. They are the ghosts of the dream, the human cost of the boom that has made men like Silas rich. He does not even seem to see them. That evening, you are an unseen guest at a lavish dinner party in a newly built mansion. Silas is there, along with the other new elite of San Francisco. They are not talking about the hardship of the mines or the price of flour. They are talking about land deals, railroad grants, and the politics of the new state of California. They are the winners. They are the men who understood that the real gold was never in the ground. It was in the desperate, hopeful hands of the men who came to dig it. History is a story told by the winners. It remembers the man who finds the giant nugget, the merchant who builds a city. But it is a quiet and forgetful narrator when it comes to the thousands who found nothing but dirt and disappointment. You are about to witness the quiet, unremembered fates of the individuals who made up the great, glittering myth of the gold rush. Your journey now detaches from a single timeline, and you begin to drift through the years that followed the main rush. You are a silent witness to the quiet, unglamorous aftermath, seeking out the fates of the people whose journeys you have followed. You find Ethan first. It is nearly a decade later. You do not find him back on his farm in Missouri. You find him in California's Great Central Valley, working as a hired hand on a vast wheat farm. He is a middle-aged man now, his face weathered by the sun, his back permanently stooped from a life of hard labor. He never struck it rich. He never even made enough money to pay for the long journey home. The shame of his failure was too great, and the letters from his family eventually stopped coming. He is the living embodiment of the story's quiet truth. Like so many others, he was forced into labor after his dream collapsed. He is one of the thousands who, as the history books note, met only disappointment, debt, and often an anonymous grave. His promise to return in 1 year has become a life sentence of exile, served in the very land that was supposed to be his salvation. You see him at the end of the day, looking out at the golden fields of wheat, and you can feel the immense, silent weight of a life that has been lived in the shadow of a single ruinous gamble. Your journey then takes you south to the growing pueblo of Los Angeles. In a dusty barrio you find Joaquin. He is older, his hands still skilled, but he no longer works as a miner. He is a vaquero, a horseman, working for a large California ranch. The expert knowledge of geology and mining that once made him a master of his craft is now a useless memory. He was one of the first to find the gold, and one of the first to have it taken from him. His story is the story of thousands of Mexican, Chilean, and Chinese miners who were displaced by the racial violence and greed that the law enabled. He survived, but his prosperity was stolen, his place in the story of the gold rush deliberately erased. Finally, you travel to the bustling, chaotic, and now permanent city of San Francisco. In the narrow, crowded streets of the newly formed Chinatown, you find May. She is older now, her face etched with the lines of hard work and quiet endurance. She still runs a laundry, though it is a small, proper shop now, not a crude tent by the river. You watch her as she works, her movement still tireless, her focus absolute. She has survived. She has carved out a small, precarious existence in a hostile world, and you know that every spare coin she earns is still sent back across the ocean to the family she has not seen in years. She did not find a gold mountain, but in her own quiet, uncelebrated way, she has been the most successful of them all, for she has endured. These are the individual human realities. You have witnessed the story of a broken farmer, a displaced expert, and a resilient survivor. And now, you feel the great, jarring contrast with the myth that is already being built. You hear the politicians in Sacramento and Washington speaking of the gold rush as a glorious adventure, a triumph of rugged individualism that built a great state. You see the popular dime novels that tell heroic stories of brave prospectors finding massive nuggets. This is the central conflict. The grand, successful myth of the gold rush versus the quiet, often tragic reality for most individuals. The history being written is not the story of Ethan or Joaquin or May. It is the story of Silas the merchant. It is a story that celebrates the winners and erases the legions of the lost. Every journey must end. The dust settles, the graves are covered, and the survivors move on. But that is when the second journey begins, the journey of the story itself. It travels through time, shedding its inconvenient truths, polishing its hard edges, until it becomes a smooth, simple, and powerful myth. You have witnessed the messy reality. Now you will reflect on the beautiful and dangerous legend it became. Your journey through the years of the gold rush is over. You are left in a quiet, reflective space, the vivid, often brutal memories of what you have witnessed swirling around you like dust motes in a sunbeam. You have seen the full scope of this historical moment, and now you are left to weigh its true legacy. You reflect on what the gold rush built. It was a powerful, chaotic engine of creation. It pulled 300,000 people to a remote corner of the continent. It transformed the sleepy village of San Francisco into a booming metropolis almost overnight. It accelerated the creation of a massive new state, and by admitting California to the Union as a free state, it forever altered the political balance of a nation inching towards civil war. It was the force that truly stretched America from sea to sea. But then you remember the price. You have been a silent witness to the true human cost of this creation. You remember the back-breaking, fruitless labor of Ethan, a man who traded his family for a dream and lost both. You remember the quiet dignity of Joaquin, a skilled man displaced by racial hatred. You remember the tireless resilience of May, surviving in a world that saw her as less than human. You remember the brutal, swift justice of a rope thrown over a tree branch and the state-sanctioned genocidal campaign of massacres waged against the native peoples. You understand now the truth from the historical records. But the reality was messier. The frontier was sweat, dirt, disease, and death. It was brave and brutal, hopeful and unjust. This is the central conflict of the gold rush, the immense gulf between history and memory. The history you have witnessed is a complex and often tragic story of individual failure and systemic violence. But the memory, the myth that grew from it, is something else entirely. You see how the story was simplified. The messy reality was smoothed over, and the rugged individualism, the myth of the lone pioneer, became legend. The 49er was transformed from a desperate, often failed laborer into a heroic icon, the Gold Rush prospector, a symbol of the American belief that anyone with enough grit can strike it rich. It is a powerful and inspiring story. It is also a profound and deliberate lie of omission. The myth forgets the thousands who died of cholera on the trail. It forgets the miners who were forced into labor for the large mechanized mining companies. It forgets the racist laws and the vigilante mobs. And most of all, it forgets the 120,000 native people who were killed or displaced to make it possible. To truly understand this history, you must do what the myth refuses to do. You must hold both truths at once, the resilience of pioneers and the tragedy of the people they displaced. The Gold Rush was both a story of incredible ambition and nation-building, and a story of brutal conquest, greed, and failure. The frontier, the census takers would later say, was closed, but the American frontier didn't vanish. It became the foundation. You now see that foundation for what it is. A complex, uneven, and blood-soaked ground upon which a great and glittering state was built. Your journey is over. And so, the Great California Gold Rush concluded, not with a triumphant shout from a mountainside, but with the quiet scratch of a merchant's pen in a ledger. Your own long journey of the day is also complete. The feverish rush and the back-breaking labor are over. Let the memory of the crowded rivers recede, and the dream of a golden fortune be stilled. Your claim has been settled, and it is time to rest. If our journey across the continent to the gold fields has helped you relax tonight, a quiet like is always appreciated. And if you would like to explore more journeys into the past with us, consider subscribing. Thank you for joining me in the diggings. May your dreams find a peaceful claim, and may your sleep be as rich and profound as the gold so many sought. Until our next story, sleep well.